Welcome back to Central News. Strength and conditioning is an integral part of training for rugby players and other athletes alike. Joining me today from the Bathpenny Rugby Union is Murray, also known as Muzz, and Abby. Thanks for coming on the show today, guys. Muzz, can you tell us about why strength conditioning training is so integral?
I think the strength component is part of the whole conditioning process. It's just one aspect. So the conditioning, especially in rugby, we have to cover off so many different bases. They have to be running fit, they have to be powerful, they have to be fast. But the strength component itself, so lifting the weights, getting in the gym, that sort of things, is really probably one of the most important foundations. So we've really got to build that, and that's how it should be it is our main focus for the whole year because of the nature of the sport. It's a strength-based sport. They're running into each other, so the strongest at the end of the day does ultimately win.
So with it being a daily thing for the players, can you give us a rundown on what you'd put the players through on a daily basis?
So on a daily basis, we'll be in the gym every day, right up until the game, and they're just performing movements that we try to come up with movements that replicate the movements they're performing on the field. So if it's, say, a winger, he might have to do some bench pressing movement. So that's kind of replicating a fend, if you like. Some squatting. Squatting's one of the things it's fairly generic, but it just covers the whole legs. I mean, they're on the legs for the game, so they've got to be strong. But every day we'll touch on every single movement that they perform in the game.
And Abby, how does the training differ from player to player?
It starts right from the beginning. Our first thing we do with each player at the beginning every year is get a physio screening that we call a body balance with our team physio. And then from there, each player has things to work on, rehab, prehab, whether it be on their own or in our conditioning sessions. It's individual for the players. And then on top of that, obviously, everybody has different shapes. So we have different groups that we call shedders, maintainers, and gainers. So their training specifically at certain phases is very different to target those people's special needs, the players' needs, and then their nutrition is obviously very different as well. And another big thing obviously is position for rugby, because every position has, like Murray was saying, with different positions having different lifts every once in a while, different focuses, every position is very different.
So there's lots of adapting that needs to take place. So how do you adapt different techniques and all the other factors to each player?
So I guess according to the groups that Abby just mentioned, if you've got a shedder, for example, he's a big boy, he needs to lose some body fat, so we'll modify his program in terms of intensity, sets, reps that he has to perform. He has to work essentially a bit harder to lose a bit of body fat, if you like. And then I guess more importantly is for each player, depending on the physio test that we get given, it just highlights any dysfunctions they have, so we'll try to correct those in the gym according to their position. So there's no point of prop doing a lot of speed work when really he's in the scrum pushing, so he's got to do a lot more strength based work in comparison to a back who has to do a lot of speed work. So that's how we sort of tailor it. It can get really, really detailed.
So is it just you two that are the coaching, strength and conditioning coaches for the Steamers?
Yep, and we also have interns who help us out as well, so then they can run some sessions for us, because we in the Bay have 3 different areas we have to cover, so it's impossible for just 2 of us to be in every place at the same time, so we utilize student interns as well.
How is it a great opportunity for those interns to get on board with the local rugby teams?
Yeah, it's huge, because in strength conditioning you can't get a job unless you have experience, and you can't get experience unless you volunteer. So everybody has to do it. Any strength and conditioning coach has to do it. So yeah, perfect for them to get to do it with the rugby team.
Cool. And Muzz, how important is strength and conditioning training alongside the on-field training? Because obviously, as you mentioned before, the players are in the gym on a daily basis. How does that coincide with the on-field training?
Yeah, I guess that's one of the big issues. Like, in my opinion, sort of our training philosophy is there's too much gym work in a way. So we work really well with the coaches. The coaches are really good at giving us the opportunity to train the boys on the field. So we actually do a lot of strength work in particular on the field. it's very specific to the game that way. But alongside the coaches, so if they're doing the skill work, we'll work right with them, and I'll correct the coach and tell him if I think the player's doing something wrong. It could be done in a better way, or the drill or skill could be performed in a better way if it's going to benefit them in a conditioning sort of focus, if you like. Yeah.
And Abby, we've talked about how it can improve the player's performance on the field. How can it prevent injury?
Well, just strengthening the body, and like we said, from that body balance we do originally, or the physio screening, just working on all those imbalances and the injuries those players have or are more likely to have because of the way their bodies are built. So that's like the main goal of everything we do is obviously performance, but secondary to that, you don't have performance if you're injured. Thanks,
Maz and Abby, for coming on the show today and sharing your knowledge about strength and conditioning training for the Bay Steamers. Well, that's it. Strength and conditioning, an important part of the training for the Steamers. Now, after the break, Sarah Ulmer takes us on a great river ride.